All right, folks, get ready because today we're going to really flex those brain muscles. We're going deep, deep, deep into the science behind breaking a sweat.
I like it.
You guys sent us a research paper, and the title alone, well, it could double as a workout, honestly. Biochemical and physiological responses in sedentary subjects during the evaluation of maximum oxygen uptake.
Catchy.
I know, right? I'm already tired just reading it. So maybe we need the, T old daughter version
Yeah.
for those of us who, prefer our science a little less syllabic.
Okay, so basically this paper is like a microscopic adventure inside our bodies. We see how everything reacts like at a chemical level when we start pushing ourselves during a workout.
Okay.
We're talking lactate, glucose, oxygen, all the good stuff that powers our muscles.
So it's like peeking behind the scenes of the ultimate energy drink, but the one our body makes itself.
Exactly. And let me tell you, it's a fascinating process. The researchers had some really cool findings, especially when it comes to this thing called the anaerobic threshold. You know, that point in your workout where you feel like your tank is on empty?
Yeah.
Turns out there's a lot more going on there than we might think.
Okay, so spill the tea. Now, this paper, it takes on some of those classic workout myths, like the dreaded lactic acid buildup.
Right.
I'll admit, I always thought lactic acid was the culprit behind those sore muscles after a workout. But is this research telling us a different story?
Yeah, it might be time to retire that myth. This research actually shows that lactate, most people just call it lactic acid, right? It's more like a buffer. So instead of making our muscles more acidic, it actually helps neutralize the acidity.
Hold on, wait, back up a second. So lactate's not the bad guy here. It's more like, what, the workout buddy giving our muscles a pep talk?
Exactly. And it gets even cooler. Our muscles have this little helper called LDHH. It's an enzyme, mostly found in slow-twitch muscle fibers, the ones we use for endurance. And guess what? LDHH can actually recycle lactate, convert it back into usable energy for our bodies.
So not only is lactate not the villain, we're bringing it back for a victory lap. Our bodies are way more efficient than I thought.
Seriously, they're incredible machines.
Yeah.
And speaking of fuel, let's talk about another power source, glucose.
Yes.
The paper highlights how our blood sugar levels are directly linked to how hard we're pushing ourselves during a workout.
Yes, I was wondering about that. What's the deal there?
Okay, so picture this. The more we exert ourselves, the more our muscles crave glucose. It's their favorite energy source.
Makes sense.
And the research found this direct link. Higher oxygen uptake, that's VO2, for the data nerds out there, means lower blood glucose levels. Basically, your body throws a glucose party to fuel those muscles.
Well, if I'm going all out, my body's using up its glucose reserves like crazy.
Pretty much.
But what happens when those stores run dry? What then?
That's where things can get tricky, especially for those hardcore endurance athletes out there. Our liver is really important here. It's like our glucose supply chain, always working to keep those energy levels up.
Okay.
But even the liver has its limits.
Right. Yeah.
It can only do so much.
So knowing all this, let's say I'm planning a long run for later. How do I make sure I don't hit that dreaded glucose wall? Asking for a friend, obviously.
Well, this research really shows why prepping your fuel system is so important. If you're going for distance or even just intensity, you want those glycogen stores stocked and ready to go.
Okay.
It's like fueling up your car before a road trip.
Yeah.
You don't want to hit empty halfway there, right?
Right, yeah.
So having some carbs a couple hours before a big workout is like giving your body that energy head start.
Makes sense.
You're basically telling your body, get ready, we're going for a ride.
I love it. All right, so we're talking about fueling up. We're talking about how our bodies use that fuel. But there's this other thing that caught my eye in the research. It's this metabolic transition point.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of sci-fi, don't you think?
A little bit, yeah.
Like a portal or something.
Yeah.
The researchers, they used heart rate to figure out this point. So what's going on there? How does it play into our workouts?
This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
So the metabolic transition point, it's like that moment in a race when you're really pushing it.
Okay.
And your body's got to shift gears to keep up.
Gotcha.
It's the point where your body starts relying more on those energy processes that don't use as much oxygen.
Interesting.
And get this, your heart rate. It's like your body's speedometer, telling you exactly when that shift happens.
So if I'm watching my heart rate, I can actually tell when my body is switching energy modes.
Precisely. It's like your body saying, okay, time to bring in the reinforcements.
But remember, it's not like oxygen gets completely cut off. It's more like your body starts exploring other energy pathways to keep those muscles going.
And this is where lactate steps back in for round two, right?
Yeah.
Because it can be used for fuel even when oxygen is limited. You got it. It's like your body has this brilliant backup energy system just waiting for the right moment.
This is blowing my mind. Now, did the research say anything about how being fit, like our fitness level, affects this whole metabolic transition point? Do athletes hit it differently than, say, someone just starting out?
Definitely. Yeah. They found some cool differences in how fast our heart rates respond to intensity changes.
Yeah.
It's called heart rate kinetics, if you want to get technical. And it really depends on if someone works out a lot or they're more sedentary.
So someone who's more active, they're able to push a little further before their body's like, all right, time to switch things up.
Exactly. Think of it this way. The more you train, the better your body gets at using oxygen for fuel. So you can push harder before needing those backup energy systems.
Okay, that makes sense.
But-
Now, I got to ask about this because the paper, it also compares treadmills and stationary bikes.
Yeah.
Two classic workouts. Did the researchers see any difference in how our bodies react to each?
They did. Both activities are great for getting your heart rate up, getting that oxygen flowing, but the research suggests running on a treadmill might actually lead to a higher VO2 and lactate threshold than cycling.
Interesting. Why do you think that is? Is it because we're using different muscle groups?
You nailed it. Running on a treadmill, it just uses more muscles than cycling, and that seems to be a key factor.
So if someone wants to really max out their aerobic capacity, hitting the pavement might give them an edge?
It could,
Mhm.
but honestly, the best workout is always the one you enjoy and, the one you can stick with, right?
Mhm.
Listen to your body, find what works best for you.
It's just so true.
Yeah.
Gotta love a good workout that doesn't feel like a chore. This whole deep dive has been eye-opening. It's amazing how much is going on inside our bodies every time we exercise.
Right. It's like this whole intricate performance happening at a microscopic level.
Absolutely. So for all you listeners out there ready to use this knowledge for your next workout, what was the biggest takeaway for you? Anything that surprised you?
I think what really gets me is how interconnected everything is in our bodies. We talk about things like lactate or glucose individually, but this research shows how they're constantly interacting, influencing each other, especially when we exercise. It's like this amazing dance of energy production happening on a tiny, tiny scale.
I love that. An energy dance. And the more we understand the steps, the better we can choreograph our own fitness journeys, right?
Exactly. The more we know, the better we can optimize our health and performance.
Well said. Now, one last thought for everyone to chew on as you're getting ready for that next workout. We've talked about fuel. We've talked about how our bodies use it. So think about this. What tweaks can you make to your routine right now to really maximize your results? Something to ponder as you hit the gym or the pavement. And until next time, keep exploring and keep those bodies moving. Makes sense. So like we're basically giving our bodies an energy drink before we need it.
Exactly. Prepped and ready to go. Now, speaking of prepping and getting ready,
Yeah.
there was this other thing in the paper that I thought was super cool. It's called the metabolic transition point.
Okay, that sounds kind of sci-fi, right? Like something out of a movie.
Yeah, kind of. Like a
Yeah.
portal or something.
Right. So the researchers used heart rate to pinpoint this point.
They did.
So what exactly is happening in our bodies? How does this play into a workout, like practically?
So this is where things get really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so think about it like this. The metabolic transition point. It's like that point during a race when you're really pushing it,
Okay. Yeah.
and your body has to shift gears to keep up with you.
Gotcha.
That's the point where it starts relying more on those energy systems that don't use as much oxygen.
Interesting.
And get this, your heart rate. It's like a little speedometer built into your body. It's telling you exactly when you hit that transition point.
Whoa. So I can actually tell when my body's switching energy modes just by looking at my heart rate.
Exactly. It's like your body sending you a signal. Like, hey, time to bring in the reinforcements. But it's not like your oxygen gets completely cut off or anything. It's more like your body's smart, right?
Yeah.
It starts tapping into other energy sources to keep those muscles moving.
Right. And this is where our friend lactate steps back into the ring, right? Because we can use it for fuel even when oxygen is limited.
Bingo. Your body's got this backup system ready to go. Amazing, really.
This is incredible. Now, did the research say anything about how, our fitness level impacts this whole metabolic transition point? Like, do more seasoned athletes hit it differently than someone who's just starting out?
Oh, absolutely. It's actually a really good question. They found some really interesting differences in how fast our heart rates respond to those intensity changes. It's called heart rate kinetics.
Okay.
And it totally varies between people who work out a lot and people who are more sedentary.
So the more active someone is, are you saying they can push harder before that transition happens?
Exactly. Because the more you train, the more efficient your body gets at using oxygen as fuel.
Makes sense. So you can push further before your body's like, all right, time to switch things up.
Exactly. Now, I know we're short on time, but we have to talk about this because the paper also compares treadmills and stationary bikes.
Yes, two of my favorites.
Right. Classic workouts for a reason. And the researchers found that while both are great for your heart rate and oxygen consumption, running on a treadmill might actually give you a higher VO2 and lactate threshold than cycling.
Oh, interesting. Any idea why that is? Does it have to do with the muscles we use?
You got it. Running on a treadmill just uses a bigger group of muscles than cycling does. And that difference in muscle mass seems to be key.
So pounding the pavement might be the way to go if you really want to max out your aerobic capacity?
It could, yeah. But again, it all comes back to finding what you enjoy and what you can actually stick with, right? Listen to your body. It'll tell you what it needs.
So true. You gotta love a good workout that doesn't feel like a chore. This deep dive has been amazing.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much is going on in our bodies every time we work out.
Right. Like a whole microscopic performance happening inside of us. It's pretty incredible.
Totally. So for our listeners, the ones getting ready to crush their next workout, what was the biggest takeaway for you from all of this research? Anything that surprised even you?
Honestly, I think what really gets me is just how interconnected everything is within our bodies. Like, we talk about things like lactate and glucose as if they're these separate things.
Right.
But they're not. This research shows just how much they're constantly interacting and influencing each other, especially when we're exercising. It's like this intricate dance of energy production happening at a microscopic level.
That's a great way to put it. Our own little energy bands. And the more we learn those steps, the better we can choreograph our own fitness journeys, right?
Absolutely. Knowledge is power when it comes to our health and how we perform.
Couldn't agree more. Now, one last thing to think about before you head out for that next workout. We've talked about the fuel, we've talked about how our bodies use it, but think about this. What tweaks can you make to your routine, like right now, to really maximize those results? Something to ponder as you're hitting the gym or the pavement. And until next time, keep exploring and keep those bodies moving.
Totally. You got to find something you can stick with, right? Can't be a chore.
This deep dive, I'm telling you, it's been eye-opening. For real, it's amazing how much is happening in our bodies, like at any given time, but especially when we work out, right?
I know, right? Like a whole hidden world is just chugging along in there.
Seriously. So for our listeners, all our fitness fans out there gearing up for their next workout, what's the main takeaway for you from all this research? Anything that surprised you, even as the expert?
What really gets me is it's easy to think about things in our body as separate, right? Like lactate over here, glucose over there, doing their own thing.
Right.
But this research, it just shows how interconnected everything really is, especially during exercise. It's wild, this whole intricate dance of energy production all happening at a microscopic level.
I love that image, our own little energy dance. And the more we learn those steps, the better we can choreograph our own fitness journey, right? No more guessing games.
Exactly. Knowledge is power,
Yeah.
right? Especially when it comes to our health and reaching our full potential.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive for today. But before you hit the gym, before you lace up those running shoes, one last thing to think about. We've talked about the fuel, how our bodies use it, all that good stuff. So final thought, what tweaks can you make to your routine, like today, to see those results, to really maximize what your body can do? Something to ponder as you get moving. And until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those amazing bodies of yours moving.